Hey everyone, it's Froggy, and I'm back again with another episode of Requiescence, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. I bring the edge to a thin gash on my forearm. I'd gotten the wound from twisting and turning on the rocky ground in my sleep. It just closed up a few days ago, but the soft brush of the blade against my flesh makes the red line easily slit open. I grit my teeth from the spark of pain that wells around the spot. Slowly, blood begins to trickle out from the cut, and I raise my arm over the altar. Drip. A single drop splashes onto the altar. Nothing happens. I raise an eyebrow, sheathing my sword, and place my hand atop the wound to keep further blood from spilling out. Seconds pass and nothing happens. I knew I was a fool to think this would work. But then... the blood sinks into the marble of the altar. It makes a loud hissing noise, and I jump back in surprise. The marble looks dry, as if my blood never spilled on it at all. This is too weird. I draw my sword back out again quickly, turning to hastily glance around the room. But I don't see anything or anyone. Huh? Then, in the corner of my eye, a flash of red by the edge of the chamber. I shoot a glance to my right to see a torch now lit on the wall. It blazes with a vibrant red flame. Next to it, though, is only the featureless stone of the wall. The torch looks so isolated that I can't help but wonder its purpose. But it definitely hadn't been lit before. Maybe this really does have a chance of working, even though it gives me a horrible feeling. With some reluctance, I take my hand off the wound, where the cut was still oozing small crimson drops. I tilt my arm a little bit, letting a trickle of blood trail down my wrist. Another fresh drop falls onto the altar. And then, a moment later, hiss. The loud sound makes me more than a little uneasy. But the wait is shorter this time. Long before I hear the sound of the flames growing louder. What the? I swear I just heard something like a far-off explosion. It seemed really distant, but still. I quickly glance over to the newly ignited torch. Just beside it, I can see a glowing ring on the stone. It has the same ethereal crimson gleam as the torch beside it. 2 drops ignite the core. I turn back to the altar. The 3rd drop. There's so much anticipation flowing through me that I can't even feel my wound stinging anymore. But I can see that it's still bleeding. I gingerly let another droplet fall from my forearm onto the marble. This time I quickly turn around to face where the torch and the circular groove are on the wall. Before my very eyes, the glow of the circular runes starts to bleed outwards. Another light begins glowing, revealing a rectangular shape in the stone, about the size of a door. It reminds me of liquid metal being poured into a mold, glowing an angry, fiery red in deep grooves. Now the last drop. Sucking in a breath, I hold my sword to my forearm, lightly pressing the blade to my skin to coax another drop of blood out of the clotting wound. I raise my arm over the altar one last time, swallowing the uneasy feeling tightening my throat. The wound in my arm looks worse than when it begun. I guess it was a little clumsy when I first cut it back open. I allow one last drop to ooze from my skin down onto the hungry marble. Drip. There was no hissing sound this time. And then I hear a sudden, deep crackling noise. I almost don't want to look at the door, but I force my gaze back towards it. The circular rune in the door is now split in half by a slender black line. A line that runs a jagged course from top to bottom of the frame. It splits the stone like a lightning bolt. The markings on the altar bleed a red glow, shimmering unnervingly. A fourth drop to part the door. I cover my arm back up with my sleeve, not paying much attention to the faint stinging of the cut. Sheathing my sword slowly, I can't help but wonder if I've done something horrible by using this dark magic. But at least I have a way to move forward, and right now, that's all that matters. So I repeat in my head grimly. Just as I'm about to turn away, I notice a set of faded, much older-looking runes on the side of the altar. I hadn't seen them before. Might as well read them to see if there's anything important. Let's see. Carry the weight of your pride. Kneel down before the ascent. Bear the lash you cannot hide. Straighten what the world has bent. Pride, ascent? Does it mean anything, or is it just an old chant? Beside it, there are 7 flat lines etched into the stone, stacked on top of each other in a strange fashion. 7. I wonder if that number's significant at all. There's not really enough information to even hazard a guess. I doubt it means much of anything, but that number, 7... it burns into my brain for some reason I don't really understand. 7. Sighing to myself, I shrug and turn to descend the steps of the dais. Just as my foot hits the last step, I reflexively jump back from a bright flash of red light. What forms before me leaves me stunned for a long moment. A pretty guy. A tall figure, clad in white robes. His red eyes look like smoldering embers, burning directly into me as he stares my way. In his hands is a long wooden staff, one that looks remarkably ancient and withered. Is this a spirit? He takes a step closer.
Stay where you are!
I quickly pull out my sword, pointing it at the figure's head. But he doesn't seem to care. Instead, he just draws closer still, taking slow steps, until he stands only a foot or so away. From this close distance, I can see that the figure's pale skin is marked by a splattering of odd, translucent patches, glimmering unnervingly. Those red eyes stare unblinkingly down at me, as if trying to read the contents of my soul.
What do you want from me?
We'll find out next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you want to see more videos from me, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.